Hello, sixth graders. We are combining two lessons, 7.2 and 7.4, which are the percent equation and percent proportion. And our word problem is, I can solve problems using the percent proportion and or percent equation. So in this video, we're going to show you two ways to solve these percent questions, either using the proportion or the equation. And I want you to try both ways and decide which one works better for you, and that's the one that you can use. So this is talking about the percent proportion. A percent proportion compares part of a quantity to a whole quantity for one ratio and lists the percent as a number over 100 for the other ratio. Okay? So if we zoom in here, okay, we have, looking at this one here, part over whole. Okay, so the whole number is our denominator and the part of it is the numerator. And then on the other side, whatever our percent is, percents are always out of 100, so then we have the percent over 100. Okay? Another way to look at it, when we're looking at the question, look for the is over of equals percent over 100. Okay? So the percent proportion, just something to note, this is how it should look, or this is how you should say it, is over of equals percent over 100. Okay? So an example we're going to do here, what percent of 24 is $18? Okay? So I'm going to draw my proportion. Again, we're using is over of equals percent over 100. So we look at what we're looking for. What percent? Well, the percent goes on the top right, so that's where we put our variable, over 100. And then we have of 24 is 18. Okay? So is on the top. That's the part. Of is on the bottom, or the whole. Okay? So it would look like that. Then we use our solving proportion methods of cross multiplication. Okay? 18 times 100 is 1,800 equals 24 x, and then since we're doing multiplication, to solve for x we do division, so divide each side by 24, and x equals 75. And we can go back and check this by finding 75% of 24, so 0.75 times 24, and we do get 18. Okay, so just a little check to say, oh, yep, this 75% is correct. And since it was asking what percent, we need to make sure we have a percent sign on there. Okay? Again, is over of equals percent over 100. So what number is 60% of 150? So now what number is, again, set up your proportion. What number is, so the is our variable, that's where we'll put x. Okay, then we have the 60%, that always goes, our percent always goes over 100. And then this of goes on the bottom, is 150. Again, cross multiplication, 150 times 60 equals 9,000. And as long as you are showing your work, you can use a calculator. Equals 100x, divide both sides by 100. Okay, the zeros will cancel. And we are left with x equals 90. Okay? So that would tell us that 60% of 150 is 90. Okay, just some things to note here. An example of what this looks like, here's 4 out of 5 is 80%. So it's showing the part over whole. The part is 4, the whole is 5, and the 80% is over 100. Okay? In this chart here, it's showing us the different types of percent problems and where our variable would go. So if we are trying to find the percent, it will ask us what percent, so that's where we put the variable over 100. Okay? Of 60 is, of 6 is 3, so that's that is over of. And then if we're trying to find the part, or the is, then it would say what number is, okay? So 50% of 6. So that's where our variable is over here. And then if we're finding the whole, it has this of what number, okay? So that's where we put the variable on the bottom left. Something else to note, the part usually comes before or after the word is, and the whole usually comes before or after the word of. All right, so we have some practice here of we're making sure that we know what we are looking for. So what is our variable, and that's how we're going to set it up, okay? So I'm going to go through some of these, not necessarily all of them, okay? Again, note this. Is over of equals percent over 100, okay? So what percent of 65 is 13? Draw your proportion. What percent, that means our variable is over the 100, of 65, so 65 is on the bottom.
Mr. Singwell, please call for.
Okay, and the is 13 is on the top, okay? Again, do your cross multiplication. 13 times 100 equals 1,300 equals 65x. Divide both sides by 65. X equals 20. Okay. Number 2, $4 is what percent of 50? Okay, is $4, so that's the top. Of 50, that would be the bottom of what percent, that's our variable, over 100. Okay. Again, do your cross multiplication. 4 times 100 is 400, divided by 50, and x equals 8. Okay. Number 3. What number is 35% of 22? Is, what number is, that's our variable, of 22. The 35% goes over 100. Again, cross multiply. 22 times 35. And then we're going to divide that by 100. And x equals 7.7. Okay. Something I want to note on these last two, because they were asking for what percent, we need to remember to include our percent sign on here. Okay? Number 4, 14% of 81 is what number? Okay, is what number? That's going to be our top. Is over of 81, and then 14% over 100. Again, cross multiply 81 times 14 divided by 100. Make sure to be showing your work. I'm just kind of skipping over that part for now. And we get 11.34. Just to make sure that you guys can check your answers. Okay, number 5, 13 is 26% of what number? Is over of equals percent over 100, so we have that percent over 100. It's always the easy one to fill out. 13 is goes on the top. Of is what we're looking for. All right, cross multiply. 13 times 100 divided by 26. X equals 50. All right, 55 is 40% of what number? I always notice how I always start by drawing that, and then I just fill in the spaces. So 55 is, that's going to be our top. We got 40%, that's 40 over 100. And then this of what number is our variable. Cross multiply 55 times 100 divided by 40. X equals 137.5. Okay. Last couple. What percent of 45 is 72? So what percent, that's over 100, is, that's the top number, and our of, and then we cross multiply. 72 times 100 divided by 45 equals x equals 160%. Now, think about this one, 160%, that's a very big number, because if you think about it, it's asking you what percent of 45, so the whole is 45, and the part is 72, which is bigger than our whole, so our percent should be bigger than 100. Okay. 1% of what number is 7? Draw your proportion. 1%, that's 1 over 100. Our of what number? That's going to be our denominator, and is 7 times 100 divided by 1. X equals 700. Okay, and last one for this one. 33 is 50% of what number? So the is over of is what we're looking for. Percent over 100. 33 times 100 divided by 50. X equals 66. And I think I forgot my percent sign. Oh, nope, we're good. Okay. So x equals 66. Okay, so now we're looking at the percent equation, which looks like this. Again, you have the part over the whole, which equals the percent. Okay? And then we're showing in this step here that if you multiply each side by the whole, like these would then cancel, and you would be left with part equals percent times whole. And this is the percent equation. So this is what you need to know. Okay? Part equals percent times whole. Okay? Something to note when you're using the percent equation, a percent must always be converted to a decimal or a fraction when it is used in an equation. So when we did the percent of proportion and we were solving for the percent, because it was set up as a fraction over 100, it automatically was already in a percent. But when we use the percent equation, when we use this, okay, it's going to give us the percent as a decimal, and we would have to convert it to a percent. Okay? So let's try this one. 600 is what percent of 700? Okay? So again, the part is going to be our is equals percent times, and the whole is going to be up. So just like we did with the percent proportion, part is our is, whole is our of. Okay, so 600 is, so that would be on the left. What percent, that's where we put our variable. I'm going to do y, of 700. So we are multiplying by 750. Okay. Now, to get y by itself, we divide each side by 750. Okay. 600 divided by 750 equals, okay, 0.8. Now, notice here, oops, there we go. Remember to write the decimal as a part, or as a percent in your final answer. So right now, it's just a decimal, but we are looking for a percent. So to do that, we have to move the decimal to the right. Okay, fill in with a 0. So our answer would be 80%. Okay. Um, 45 is 90% of what number? So again, is equals percent times of. So 45 is, and now it's where we plug in our percent, okay? But for that, we have to turn this into a decimal. So 90%, we move the decimal over 1, 2 to the left, okay? And then of what number? That's where we put our variable in. So I'm using some y. Okay, now to get y by itself, I divide both sides by 9/10. Okay, so 45 divided by 9/10. Y equals 50. Okay? Okay, so type Types of percent problems, again, like we had for the last one, find the part. So what number is, so they have this part here. That tells us our variable is on the left. Okay, 50%, turn it into a decimal. If we're finding the percent, it says 3 is what percent of 6. So it tells us our is and our of, and we're looking for the percent. And if we're finding the whole, it says of what number, so that's where we put our variable. Okay, so again, we have some practice here to practice setting up these problems and to solve for them, okay? So what percent of 56 is 14? So again, we're going to use is equals percent times of. All right, so we have the is 14. We don't have a percent, and our of is 56. So divide both sides by 56. 14 divided by 56, and you get y equals 0.25, which then turning that into a percent, move the decimal 2 to the right, and you get 25%. Okay, I'm going to go a little out of order and just down the line here. So number 3, 80 is 40% of what number? So our is equals percent, turn it into a decimal, of what number? So now 80 divided by 0.4, we're dividing both sides by that 4/10, and x equals 200. Okay. Number 5, what percent of 2,000 is 8? Okay, so is equals percent times of, okay, just filling it in as I read it. Divide both sides by 2,000, so 8 divided by 2,000. 0.004. Again, to now turn this into a percent, move the decimal 2 to the right, and it's 0.4%, so a very small percent. 85 is what percent of 170? Okay, so is, 85 is, so that's on our left side. What percent is what we're looking for? Of 170. Divide both sides by 170, so 85 divided by 170. X equals 5/10. Now to turn that into a percent, move it 2 to the right. That's the biggest thing to remember with using the percent equation, is that you have to remember to move back and forth between a decimal and a percent. Okay, find 30% of 70. Okay. So this one, it's not, we have the is and the, we have the of and the percent. We don't have the is, so that's our variable. 30% as a decimal times the of. Okay. So our number would be 21. So you just multiply those like normal. Okay, a couple more to try. 36 is what percent of 40? So is equals percent times of. So now 36 divided by 40, x equals 9/10. Turn that into a percent, 1, 2, 90% is our answer. Okay. 65% of what number is 78? So is equals percent, move it as into a decimal, 0.65 of what number? So that's where we put our variable. So now 78 divided by 65 hundredths, x equals 120. And last one. What is 110% of 80? So is, that's what we're looking for, equals 110%, turn that into a decimal, 2 to the left, 1.1 of 80. Multiply that, and you get x equals 88, which again makes sense because it's our part of the 80, 110%, so it should be bigger than that. Okay, so you can go back and rewatch any part of this video that you are still stuck on. Otherwise, look at the examples in your textbook from 7.2 and 7.4. 7.2 is the percent proportion, 7.4 is the percent equation. Otherwise, look at the online tutor videos in the textbook, or head on over and take your 7.2, 7.4. It's combined into one NICU at this time.